In the darkest depths of a Himalayan laboratory, beneath layers of ancient rock and forgotten history, the Emperor of Mankind stood before his greatest work. 20 glass incubation chambers, each containing something that had never existed before, something between mortal and God. These were the Primarchs, and their story begins not with war, but with hope. The Emperor was ancient beyond measure. He had walked among humanity for thousands upon thousands of years, watching civilizations rise and crumble into dust, guiding mankind from shadows. But now, in the 30th millennium, humanity teetered on the edge of extinction. The age of strife had torn the galaxy apart. Warp storms isolated human worlds from one another. Old night, they called it, and in that darkness, humanity was die alone on 10,000 worlds. So the Emperor decided to reveal himself, to unite humanity under one banner, to build an Imperium that would span the stars. But he knew he couldn't do this alone. He would need generals. He would need commanders who could lead his armies across the galaxy. He would need sons. The creation of the Primarchs was the Emperor's most ambitious undertaking, drawing upon his own vast genetic knowledge, upon secrets stolen from the very fabric of the warp itself. He began to craft 20 beings who would be to him as he was to ordinary humans, demigods, each one designed with specific traits, specific purposes, each one a reflection of one aspect of the Emperor himself. But creating gods is dangerous work. The Emperor labored in secret, deep beneath the mountains of Terra. He worked with gene craft and psychic manipulation, binding physical form with ethereal essence. Each Primarch was given not just enhanced physical capabilities that would make them near-immortal engines of war, but also a presence, a charisma that would draw ordinary humans to them like moths to a flame. They would be more than commanders. They would be leaders, legends, living symbols around which humanity could unite. The early stages of their growth were carefully monitored. The Emperor would sometimes stand in that chamber, watching the 20 tubes, each containing a form that grew more defined with each passing day. Some were destined to be warriors without peer, others brilliant administrators. Some would be savage when needed, others diplomatic and wise. Together, they would be everything humanity needed. But the Emperor was not the only power in the galaxy watching this experiment. The Chaos Gods, ancient entities of pure malevolence dwelling in warp, looked upon the Emperor's work with a mixture of rage and delight. These beings, born from the collective fears and darkest emotions of sentient life, saw the Primarchs as both a threat and an opportunity. If the Emperor succeeded, his ordered Imperium might one day weaken their hold on reality itself. But if they could corrupt these godlings, on a night when the warp storms howled with unusual fury, the Chaos God struck. The laboratory's defenses, built by the Emperor himself, were formidable, but the Chaos Gods reached through the warp with power that could shatter worlds. The glass chambers cracked, energy fields failed, and in that moment of catastrophic failure, 20 infant Primarchs were torn from their cradles and scattered across the galaxy through the roiling madness of the warp. The Emperor's rage at this theft was terrible to behold. His greatest work, stolen before it could be completed, the infant Primarchs, still developing, hurled across space and time to land on distant worlds. He didn't know if they had survived. He didn't know what they might become without his guidance. But he knew he had to find them. And so the Great Crusade began with 2 purposes now intertwined: unite humanity and find the lost sons. The Primarchs, despite being infants when they were scattered, were far from helpless. Each landed on a different world, and each rose to prominence with supernatural speed. Their enhanced genetics caused them to mature rapidly, their bodies and minds growing in months what would take normal humans years. And more than that, they carried with them an undeniable presence. People were drawn to them, followed them. Even as children, the Primarchs were born leaders. Consider Robot Gilliman, who fell upon the world of Macridge. Found and adopted by one of the planet's noble families, young Gilliman displayed such remarkable intelligence that by the age of 10, he was advising on matters of state. When civil war tore Macridge apart, it was Gilliman who saw the patterns others missed, who crafted strategies that saved his adopted homeworld. By the time the Emperor found him, Guilliman had already transformed Mackridge into an efficiently run paradise of order and prosperity. He was a builder of empires, an administrator without peer. The Emperor looked upon Guilliman's work and saw reflected back his own dream of a united, ordered Imperium. Then there was Leman Russ, the Wolf King, who crashed onto the frozen death world of Fenris. Found not by humans, but by a pack of Fenrisian wolves, Russ was raised among them, running wild across ice fields and learning the ways of the pack. When he finally encountered humans, he was a savage figure of legend, but also possessing a cunning that belied his feral nature. He became king of Fenris through strength and loyalty, embodying the warrior spirit. The Emperor saw in Russ a weapon of war, yes, but also someone who understood brotherhood and pack loyalty, qualities that would serve the Great Crusade well. On the volcanic mining world of Nocturne, the Primarch Vulcan was found by a blacksmith named Bel. Unlike some of his brothers who rose to power through conquest, Vulcan's path was one of craftsmanship and protection. He became known not just for his incredible strength and resilience. Even among Primarchs, Vulcan was nearly impossible to kill, but for his compassion. He worked the forges alongside common people. He defended them from the massive predators that stalked Nocturne's deadly surface. When the Emperor arrived, he found a son who had chosen to be a guardian rather than a conqueror, a rare trait and precious. Each reunion between the Emperor and one of his lost sons played out differently. Some Primarchs knew instantly, on some deep genetic level, who the Emperor was. Others needed convincing. But in every case, there came a moment of recognition. Father and son, finally united after decades of separation. As each Primarch was found, they were given command of their own legion, vast armies of space marines, enhanced warriors created using genetic material derived from Primarchs themselves. Each legion took on the characteristics of their Primarch. Guilliman's Ultramarines became exemplars of tactical doctrine and discipline. Russ's space wolves embraced their savage nobility. Vulcan salamanders became known for their compassion toward ordinary humans, even in the midst of war. The Emperor did not find his sons in order of their numerical designation. The 20th Primarch was not found last, nor the first one first. They emerged from their various worlds as the Great Crusade swept across the galaxy, each discovery a moment of joy for the Emperor, another piece of his grand design falling into place. But the scattering had changed them. The Emperor's original design had been to raise them himself, to shape them with his own teachings from infancy. Instead, they had been raised on worlds across the spectrum of human experience. Some, like Guilliman, had grown up in prosperity and stability. Others had known only war and hardship. And some had landed on worlds where the influence of chaos ran deep. The Emperor hoped that by reuniting his sons, by bringing them into the fold of the Great Crusade, any damage from their scattered upbringings could be corrected. He didn't speak to them of chaos, a decision that would later prove catastrophic. He believed that knowledge of the dark gods would make them vulnerable to corruption. Better, he thought, to keep them ignorant and pure. He was wrong about many things. But in those early years of the Great Crusade, as the Emperor found son after son, as the Legion spread across the galaxy in a great wave of conquest and unification, it seemed as if nothing could stop them. The Primarchs were magnificent, each one unique, each one brilliant in their own way. They were exactly what the Emperor had envisioned, almost. Some stood out even among these legends. Horus, the first found, became the War Master, the Emperor's chosen commander over all the legions. Charismatic and deadly, Horus was perhaps the most beloved of all the Primarchs, by his brothers and by the Emperor himself. Then there was Sanguinius, the angel, who bore wings like some figure from ancient Terra mythology and possessed nobility that inspired devotion in all who met him. Or Fulgrim, the perfectionist who drove himself and his legion to achieve excellence in all things. 20 brothers, 20 legends, 20 beings who stood between humanity and the darkness that sought to devour it. They did not know that their father's greatest enemy had already touched them, that the scattering through the warp had left marks on some of them, subtle changes that would one day bloom into betrayal. They did not know that the chaos gods watched their every triumph with patient amusement, waiting for the perfect moment to spring their trap. For now, in these early days, there was only the crusade, only the dream of unity, only the joy of discovery as each lost son was found and brought home. The emperor stood among his sons and saw his dream taking shape, an imperium that would last forever, a humanity protected by demigods. He could not see the future that was coming. None of them could. Not yet, though that is a story for another time.